guys, welcome to the second episode of the Andy Campbell Championship Show, only on Ace Podcast Nation. I'm your co-host, Si, and I'm joined by ex-championship striker, Cardiff City legend, Mr. Andy Campbell. Welcome, Andy. Great to have you back, mate.
Hello, mate, yeah.
Another week of football. We can see you this week, so it's not so bad. It's not just like the top, just your eyes poking up. That's my bad. That's my bad. That is, I didn't notice it when we were recording.
Right.
And just before I could do a couple of plugs before we get started, and an apology, I suppose, is where we did our notes and stuff, and we went through all the games. We left off the Leeds game, which took place on Sunday last week. Apologies to Leeds fans. I'm sure Andy will tell you he did not do it on purpose.
No, I definitely didn't. No, I don't want to upset any more Leeds fans. I massively apologise, and I've only got good things to say about you this week, so keep watching.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's all good this week. But yeah, it was my fault because I took notes and stuff when I was watching the championship highlights, and obviously they didn't have the Sunday games on it, and I just completely forgot. So that's my bad. Okay, just a quick couple of plugs. So all the shows are available in video format at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and in audio at all the usual podcasting sites: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and a few others. Here on the channel, we got podcast series and shows on a variety of subjects: football, mental health, serial killers, films, TV, conspiracy theories, wrestling, music, and more. We also relaunched a new series, Unscripted and Uncensored, which we had. The first guest was Roderick Higgs, and we put up the second show yesterday, which was with British MMA legend Lee Remedios, which was released, as I say, yesterday, which was a really good show. It's long, but it was really good. It was really interesting conversation. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but at the start of when I first started this sort of channel and podcast, I said, I'll talk about anything to anyone, but I won't talk about politics and kind of controversial things. And of course, Lee is really outspoken on pretty much anything. People just ask him questions and he gives an opinion on it. And so, of course, when I asked for people to send in topics and questions for that show, it was just politics and gun crime and knife crime. And so a lot of it is me squirming, trying not to offend people. But it was good. It was really interesting, and it was a good show. But it is a long one. I think it's like 2 hours long. But yeah, I encourage you all to get in touch, watch the shows, join the conversation, send comments, messages, likes, shares, whatever you like. Facebook.com, AceCast Nation, or Twitter at AceCast_Nation. So with all that out the way, let's get on to the football. Another weekend of action, ups, downs, and last-minute goals. It was an interesting one, mate.
It was, yeah. It was. It's still early, but I think you can see a couple of teams taking shape. I think there's a couple of teams who were surprising everybody. There's a lot of mistakes happening. Goalkeepers again took a little bit of a hammering. A few more goalkeeper mistakes. One in particular, which I'll focus on a little bit later. A couple of referees who, especially in one of the games I watched at the weekend, the referee and linesman made some horrific decisions and cost a certain club, which I'll go into a little bit later as well. But it's such an intriguing championship season. Like all the focus is on the Premier League this weekend with the VAR and all that rubbish, but for me, the championship is such an interesting and intriguing league. You know what I mean? There's teams beating each other's teams. There's goals galore. There's mistakes, action-packed, last-minute winners. It's the division to be in and division to watch at the minute.
Yeah, it is the best It's the best league to watch because it's got a bit of everything, and any team can beat any team on any day. I think I do. Even though I'm not a fan of VAR, I kind of think if it's in the Premier League, it should probably be in the Championship as well, just because of the amounts of money which are involved in the top. If teams go down to the League One, they lose a considerable amount of money, and obviously if they go up, so it's kind of like for that vast amount of money, I feel like maybe it should be in the Championship as well, even though I'm not a massive fan of it.
Who be talking about, Fulham came down, Swansea, a Premier League club, QPR, Premier League club of all, West Brom are, Leeds are, Charlton have been, Sheffield Wednesday have been, Middlesbrough have been, Cardiff City have been, Wigan Athletic have been in the Premier League, Nottingham Forest have. It should be, like you said, it should be in place, and I totally agree that the carrot at the end of the season is that Holy Grail, is that Premier League. And if you look back at the season and it's cost you by a referee's error or a human error, it's a massive call to make, because it's a business for a football club, and this might be early in the season, but if you get a few of them going against you at the start of the season or during the season, it can all add up by the end of it.
Oh, big time. I mean, I like, generally over the season, the best teams will go up generally. But like Cardiff got relegated last year, and they would have beaten Chelsea in the run-in had it not been for two absolutely dreadful refereeing decisions.
Yeah,
they were 1-0 up with like a few minutes to go.
That offside decision, alone, can it changes games, It wasn't even a close one, And it is a natural, a human error, but it's this year's eradicated. And you look at the Wolves game yesterday, where VAR played a huge part in that game. The Man City game in particular, again, it's just it just proves that it's that fine line, and it gets all the decisions correct, and stops all that human error. And it's a business as well, and business decisions, it keeps big clubs earning the top money. But for the likes of Wolves, for example, their fans will be hating it today, because they would have meant that they got 3 massive points at Leicester yesterday.
Yeah, but I think at some point in the season they'll have one. They'll have a couple of VAR decisions go for them. And,
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, with the Chelsea game for Cardiff, like that would have changed their complete outlook on the run-in, because they were in good form, but that beating Chelsea would have lifted the whole club, squad, morale, everything. And they never really
pivotal part of the season as well, because that the running, the running was getting tight for everybody. It was the difference of 3 points. You're going into the last game of the season, then towards the end of the season, and 3 points then would have made a massive statement, not just for yourself, but the rest of the season. And it would have had a different impact. And it's a financial as well, because it's not the parachute money, it's the players you bring in. You're not losing players, and I'm sure we'll talk later on about players leaving football clubs, and teams leave football clubs because they're not in the Premier League anymore, and that's obviously an implication as well, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay. So if we start with QPR, so I think it's not Loftus Road anymore. Which, when I first read about that, I was like, oh no, not another stadium going to come and have like a hideous name by some millionaire who's bought the naming rights or something like that. But then when I sort of read the story and looked into it a bit, it's the Kiyan Prince Foundation Stadium, which I believe is named after a lad who lost his life to knife crime, which obviously it's a beautiful gesture. I think it was voted for by the QPR fans, the name. It's an incredible gesture, and hopefully it can kickstart a movement against fighting against knife crime, because I for one, I don't live in London, but I'm fed up of reading and hearing on the news and the radio about young kids and women losing their lives in just senseless acts of violence with knives and stuff. It's a daily basis. So I was quite I thought it was
like you said, hopefully it stops all this gang culture, and stops all the meaningless crime, and stops people losing their lives, because football can play a huge part in this, and especially raising awareness in certain things. And if QPR are doing it, then the bigger clubs, along the way can do it, especially around London, because there's plenty of football clubs who can jump on board.
Oh yeah, and football clubs can have a massive impact on on young lads and the direction they take, in their early teens and stuff. So, as always, we'll go in order of the the championship highlights on Quest. Can never get used to that, but I'm glad that on the app there's no adverts. I quite like that though.
Yeah,
it's good for me. So QPR 1, Huddersfield 1.
yeah, it was a decent game. This one, obviously, you know what I mean. It was probably two clubs which you know what I mean. Well, QPR especially started good in the first game of the season. They beat Stoke City, so I was probably fully expecting them to go and have their first home game of the season and hit the ground running in front of their own fans. But Huddersfield got an early penalty in the second half, and it was a blatant penalty to be fair. And I was quite surprised that the centre half didn't receive a red card because it was a blatant professional foul. Penalty was well taken, but after that it was just QPR onslaught, and I think overall the course of the game they got the well deserved equaliser.
Yeah, they deserved it without a shadow of a doubt. I like the boy up front who plays for QPR. Is it Easy or Easy?
Yeah, he scored.
Yeah.
He was my player last week. He got one of my goods because he scored a wonderful goal last week at Stoke City, and he looks like he's brimming full of confidence, like you expect. You know what I mean? And him and Jordan Hugill together, I think will be a good partnership this season.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned last week, I had someone on who's like a QPR fan in the summer, and they were proper negative about the upcoming season. They just couldn't see where the points were coming from, and he thought that they were going to go down. But I think they've started really well. They're playing pretty decent football, and they seem to have real good good spirit and good team spirit, because even after going down 1-0, they never sort of got flustered or changed the way they were playing. They were relatively patient. It was a really good header by Hall to equalise as well.
Yeah, great.
First goal for 3 years, wasn't it?
Well, I mentioned QPR in the show before the start of the season because, like I said, I watched them twice last season, and they were the worst side I saw in the Championship, and I'm massively feared for them. You know what I mean? So for them to start the season this season full of confidence, and away win at Stoke City, a 1-1 draw against a relegated side in the Premier League, they've had a really really solid start, and you know what I mean, fourth in the league table. They started the season really well, and you know what I mean. I'm sure the QPR fans will want them to carry it on because, you know what I mean, I know when I watched them last year, that was their 8th defeat on the bounce, and I feared for them. I thought they were going to get relegated, and thankfully they didn't, because QPR is a lovely football club and doesn't deserve to go back into the League One. You know what I mean? They're certainly a Championship football club if they can get everything right.
Yeah, and they've got, they're playing a lot of young players, which again was a theme of last week that we talked about, the amount of teams which did have like young academy players playing in their teams. So I'm all for that. The more sort of younger players we can get playing, the better, playing first team football. Huddersfield, I really like Pritchard. He's a really good player. He always looks like he's got time on the ball, and he always does.
He's had a good upbringing. I think he was brought up as a young boy from Tottenham Hotspur, and he's technically very good.
Yeah, he's impressive. Other than that, Huddersfield, I kind of worry about a bit. They just don't.
I know the midfielder Hogg. He's a Middlesbrough boy, but he's played for Huddersfield for a long time. He's only a youngster in terms of football, but you know what I mean. He's obviously stayed loyal to them after getting relegated, and he knows the club inside out. And you know what I mean. I do fear them a little bit because they're in that transition period where it could go either way. You know what I mean. They obviously lost the first game of the season at Derby. They're due again at QPR at the weekend. You know what I mean. So they haven't had a fantastic start of the season, and if they're not careful, they could get dragged into a really really poor start of the season if they don't pick up some early points, and then it could be a long season for them because you're playing catch up straight away, and I don't really think teams can afford to do that, especially coming down from the Premier League.
Yeah, because the pressure's on then straight away, isn't it? Especially because, coming down, they didn't have a very good season. Even, they got relegated, but they got relegated by a long way.
Yeah.
And if you get sucked into like sort of 4, 5, 6 games without winning in those first few games, you are, like you say, you're playing catch up. And in this league, you can be very far behind very quick. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on Huddersfield. I do like Pritchard, so I'll keep an eye on him throughout the season, definitely. So next up we got Leeds. We won't forget them this week. Leeds
certainly
won,
not. And
Forest won.
for the
Saving
right
till
reasons as
last.
well, to be fair, because as I say, it was the early game at the weekend, and I thought they were absolutely magnificent. You know what I mean? I know I'm not Leeds fans' favourite person from a tweet, but I thought they were magnificent, especially first half. They created plenty of chances. Second half, they carried that on again. Patrick Bamford had two great chances, hit the crossbar just after half time, and then did the most sublime touch I've seen from a long ball. Took it on the touch, tried to lob the goalkeeper just wide, and then Hernandez scored the first goal. And I expected them just to go on then and comfortably win the game. And then obviously they got rocked just about 10, 12 minutes to go from the equaliser from Lewis grabbing off the corner, which, you know what I mean, a little bit dubious. I think it was a free kick just before, which probably should have been given. And then the corner, it could have gone anywhere. It took about 3 or 4 deflections and ricochets and ended up in the back of the net. And then, you know what I mean, probably in the end, Leeds were unlucky not to get a penalty, which
Yeah.
you know what I mean, another day it probably would have been on VAR. Was it Ellen Road? It would have been a penalty, I believe. But you know what I mean, they've got to take chances, and Leeds know that. You know what I mean, they've started the season really strong. They create chances. They're brilliant going forward. But if you don't take your chances, you don't win football matches, and they got punished in the end.
Yeah, they play some really nice stuff. I'm a huge fan of their manager, and
Yeah.
the penalty. If that's anywhere else on the pitch, it's a free kick and probably a yellow card.
100%. Yeah.
It's
I don't know why
frustrating, then, isn't it?
the linesman was that side. You know what I mean? I know the ball got sliced in the air, and then he took a swipe, and the lad went down. But there's no reason for that lad to go down. He went down because he was fouled in the box, and you know what I mean. If the ref's unsure and he's not 100% sure, then the lad's died. You've got to give him a yellow card. You can't just think it was a collision in the box. You know what I mean? He had no reason to go down. It was for me. It was 100% penalty. Leeds deserved to win that game, and you know what I mean. I was disappointed for them because, you know what I mean. I love attacking football, and what I watched on Saturday morning was attacking football at its best. And if they'd have scored 3, 4, 5, Nottingham Forest can't really argue with it.
Yeah. And the thing is, they've slipped into a similar groove as last year. Glick, as my kids would say, is an absolute baller. He's so good. The through ball for the goal was, weight was just perfect.
Yeah,
I've got a slightly different view of Bamford though. So I counted up just from the highlights which I saw on Quest and I seen on Sky. He missed 4 chances, which were like either 1-on-1 or in the 6-yard area.
Yeah.
And I know it's early season, but I just think if he's going to be Leeds' number 9, first choice number 9, he's got to be taking, at least one of them because they were really good chances.
Definitely scored, you know what I mean? Especially the 2 second half ones. The one where he hit the crossbar, he didn't really make a clean connection. You know what I mean? The second one where he tried to lob the goal, I think that was his third one, the lob goalkeeper one. And that was probably the easiest one off a harder ball. And you know what I mean, like you say, you know what I mean, he's leading the line for Leeds, and he should be scoring. He's a good enough footballer, and he should be scoring those kind of chances. But if he keeps getting chances like he's getting, you know what I mean, I do believe he'll end up scoring 20 plus goals because Leeds are just creating for fun. And I know it's only early days, but you know what I mean, to create that many chances on the first home game of the season, their fans are in for a quite a treat if they're attacking like they are.
Do you think they're missing Pontus Jansson at the back a bit?
Well,
I
you
thought
look at the goal.
struggle a lot with crosses.
I look at the goal, and the goals come from a corner. You know what I mean? They looked a bit, you know what I mean? All right, it could have gone anywhere, but a big towering centre half deals with the first ball, and you know what I mean? Would he have dealt with it? I don't know. Would he have been in the right area? He probably would have thrown his body in the way. So, you know what I mean? I prefer him in my team. They're not in my team, so you know what I mean? I do believe that they missed him for that goal. Yes, 100%. And you know, I mean, some of the reports I'm hearing why he left, that he was questioning the manager's team selection and asking people to be late for training, which I've read on the internet this week. I find absurd, but you know what I mean. There's a reason why everyone's not at different teams and fall out with managers. But you know what I mean. I would prefer him in my team on Saturday defending the corner with 10, 12, 15 minutes to go than not.
Well, yeah, especially in the Championship, where and for them as well, the way they play football, and they're going to be at the top half. Teams are just going to stick the ball in their box, in the areas, down the channels, whipping crosses in. long throws. They're gonna be facing that a lot.
Well,
So I
especially
think
now,
they need to get that
Pontus
sorted.
Jansson there. If Pontus Jansson's not there, they're going to be tested even more because before, when they're throwing those long balls, those long throws, the corner kicks, he dealt with them on his own a lot of the time last year. So if he's not there, who's dealing with them now? You know what I mean? They've obviously still inundated with good players. Of course they are, but you know what I mean? Cooper's a very, very tall centre half, commanding centre half. And obviously White's a younger boy, but for me, you know what I mean? Would I still have him in the squad or have him in the team? Of course I would, because good players, you know what I mean, they're not 10 of a penny anymore. And, you know what I mean, it's a long season and all it takes is Leeds getting an injury to one of those two centre halves and you're left a little bit short. And especially with the window shutting now, you can't be picky and choosy.
No, and for the coaches, has been known to fall out with people.
Yeah. It's his way or no way, and I do get that at times. I do understand that. You know what I mean? He's very passionate about the club, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he makes decisions. And if they're rash decisions or whatever decisions they are, he makes them for the right of the football club. And you know what I mean? He's made a decision to sell him. He got good money for him, and you move on. And Leeds are obviously going down a different route this year. And you know what I mean? You can't fault the start of the season. They've won one, drawn one, should have won two. On another day, they win that game Saturday 4-0, and we're not talking about are they missing Pontus Jansson. We're talking about Leeds dominating the game and winning it 4-0, 3-0, 5-0. And you know what I mean? And if they keep doing it like they're doing, I think you know what I mean, they'll win more games than they're not because it's just pure attacking football.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd be very, very surprised if Leeds are not in the top 3 at the end of the year.
100%. And you know what I mean? I think all this me being pro Leeds is make me feel a bit wheezy. So I think I might have to stop. I've been slagging off the week before, so I think too much positivity now about Leeds.
Yeah, I know they're gonna have to move on quick. So we got Charlton 3, Stoke 1. The one thing I was going to say about Stoke is I've looked at their starting 11 on paper, and on paper they should be challenging for the automatics.
100%. Well,
they've got a Premiership squad almost.
Well, you look at the three attacking players. You've got Gregory, who was at Millwall last year. You've got Hogan, who was at Aston Villa last year. You've got Tom Ince, who was obviously a very, very talented footballer. You've got Clucas, who was at Hull City. How they started the season the way that they have is beyond me. You know what I mean? They've let 5 goals in 2 games. You know what I mean? They're riding right at the bottom of the table. You know what I mean? With some top clubs as well. I really am baffled. You know what I mean? Jack Butland, you know what I mean? He started off
international.
He had a really bad start of the season. He's letting some horrific goals. He's made mistakes. You know what I mean? But one thing I will say though, Tom Ince's goal at the weekend was absolutely magnificent. Individual goal at his fine. You know what I mean? The goalkeeper had absolutely no chance, but as a team, it's just not clicking. And it didn't click the year before or the year before. And you can have as many individuals as you like, but you know what I mean. If your team's not clicking as an individual, as a collective unit, sorry, you know what I mean. It's going to be a long season, and you know what I mean. I've been brought up at Middlesbrough of old, and watching the Ravanellis, the Janinios, and the Vestas, the Emersons, and seeing all these world-class individual players, but we got relegated, and doesn't always work out in the end. And you know what I mean. If they're not careful, Stoke, they're going to end up like we've just said there about Huddersfield. They're going to find themselves falling behind or scrapping around towards the bottom of the table. And they are well, like you just said there, Si. The players on paper are too good to be doing what they're doing, and the football club will not be happy with the way they've started.
Yeah, I'd say the one positive for Stoke from the game was the Ince looked like the Ince of about 3 seasons ago.
Yeah,
he looked quick, sharp, skillful. He was running at players.
Yeah,
and like I say, he scored a great goal.
He must be. He'd be bring him confidence at training today after his goal. You know what I mean? And like he can't do it on his own. Granted, you know what I mean. And he's obviously got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Obviously, who his dad is and how good he's played in previous seasons. But as a football club, they've got to defend better. You know what I mean? That's from the goalkeeper who's at England international. You know what I mean? As a unit, and if they start winning games, they will go on and run because, like you just said there, on paper, just named their 3 attacking players, they're good enough for top end of the Championship, if not bottom end of the Premier League. So, you know what I mean? They could be a force to reckon with, but they've got to get it right. We said this in our first show before the season started. No one's got the divine right to win football matches without getting things right and putting the effort in. And you know what I mean? 2 defeats out of 2. You know what I mean? They won't be happy. They've obviously got a cup game this week to try and get things right, and they've got to get it right sooner rather than later, though.
Yeah, it needs to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Charlton, on the other hand, I think we said in that pre-season game that we thought they were going to do well, particularly at home.
Yeah.
And Lyle Taylor's on fire, scored again.
Yeah.
And Conor Gallagher, I thought, looked quite sharp as well.
Yeah,
He's on loan from Chelsea.
He's got a neat and tidy finish as well. They just look full of energy, full of freshness. They just look like they've come brimming full of confidence. They want to give the championship a right go. You know what I mean? The Valley's bouncing. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's been in the doldrums for the last couple of seasons in League One, and you know what I mean. Lee Bowyer has come in since, and he's worked absolute wonders. And good luck to him. You know what I mean? He's got them promoted in the last kick of the playoff final. You know what I mean? So he hasn't had a lot of time to work with stuff, and they haven't brought a lot of players in. Worked with a lot of lads who've come through the academy, younger players, brought in hardly any new players, and you know what I mean. For them to start 2 wins out of 2, you know what I mean, and go to Blackburn, get 3 points, beat Stoke City, get 3 points. They're 2 massive scalps. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean. Long may that continue for Lee Bowyer and his team.
Yeah, and I thought he showed a bit of tactical nous as well, because he changed the system to match up to Stoke's diamond, and it worked really well because they've got so much pace going forward. The front sort of two and the one in behind worked really well, and it gave Stoke a lot of problems.
Yeah,
and you know they missed a couple of chances as well, and it could have been worse for Stoke. But I thought that was quite
worse, yeah. But then you look at the other side of the coin side. You know what I mean? Charlton sold a couple of players in the window just before the window. You know what I mean? Obviously, Middlesbrough took one of their players, and it's, you know what I mean. Lee Bowyer's team, a football club, can't afford to turn money down for footballers. You know, if players don't want to play for your football club, you've got to move them on. But at the same time, he's trying to run a successful championship competitive team, and you know what I mean. Nobody would have expected the start what they've had. You know what I mean. We expected them to do well. We expected them to be sound at home and do really well and pick up the odd point even away from home. But to go to Blackburn and to win, you know what I mean, to win against Stoke City very comfortably. You know what I mean. It should have been and could have been more than it was. You know what I mean. That Lee Bowyer will be absolutely delighted, and we'll want to carry it on. You know what I mean. And we'll want to go into this cup game in midweek full of confidence and go and try and win the football match again, and just go and try and win as many games as I can before this run stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the start of the season, when they saw the fixtures, they would have looked at that Blackburn and Stoke, and they would have thought, if we could take 4 points from that, then we'll be happy.
Yeah.
And you know, they've gone and taken 6 scored goals as well. You know, they haven't just been 1-0s.
Yeah.
Lyle Taylor looks like he's gonna, he looks at the moment like he's gonna get some goals. Yeah. So be interesting to see.
You know what I mean? The show in the Premier League, or showing the teams who've come down or teams who've been there for a few years, how to probably attack the championship is by scoring more goals in the opposition and getting goal after goal after goal. Because the Norwiches of old, the Wolves of old, the West Broms, the Leicesters who came up years ago, the teams who get out of this league and do really well are the ones who score loads of goals. And you know what I mean? They've started like a house on fire with 5 in 2 games.
Yeah, the teams who struggle tend to be the ones who don't score enough.
Yeah. And they'll have the side as well. They'll have
yeah, of course they will.
Where the lads are tired, and you know what I mean, or they've had too many games in a short space of time, and they're creating chances but not scoring them. But they've got the points in the bag early doors, you know what I mean. And if they can get a few more points earlier on, you know what I mean, then confidence can grow and they can carry it on. Because you know what I mean, it's we've seen Charlton of old. You know what I mean. If Charlton can get the Valley bouncing, and they get the bums back on seats, and they can sell out, you know what I mean. That football club is the Premier League football club, and you know what I mean. Why they can't get it back? You know what I mean. Every team in the Championship probably has a small right to get back in that Premier League, and probably so do they one day.
Yeah, I think I said my dark horse to be relegated was Preston, and I think from just the early games, Charlton would be my dark horse for the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know, there's only two games to go. only 2 games gone. I know that, but just from like what I've seen and the way they play,
But we can
they
only
do
comment,
seem.
comment on what we're seeing, and what we're seeing is just pure attacking football. You know what I mean? They've let a goal
Yeah,
in the game as well, so you know what I mean. They're obviously not sound in defence, but they're scoring and attacking with confidence. And you know what I mean. If I was wanting to watch a team on Saturday playing the Championship, Charlton would be in my top 3 to probably go and watch because of the way they're attacking and playing some good football.
spot on, mate. So next was West Brom versus Millwall, which finished 1-1.
Yeah,
it was Slaven Bilic's first game.
yeah, a little bit disappointed here because you know I've seen the highlights of the game, and West Brom dominated the game for long periods. And once they got the goal, I expected them to go on and go and smash more goals in and just play with confidence. But the way that the game carried on, the longer the game carried on, the more confident Millwall got. They got a few set pieces, and you spoke about him last week, Matt Smith. He scored himself a very, very good goal, reaction goal, very good finish. And in the end, you know what I mean. You go away to West Brom and come away with a point. It's a very, very good point, and you know West Brom haven't started the way that I expected. I expected them to be scoring. You know what I mean? The 4s, the 5s, the 6s. You know what I mean? In 2 games like West Brom, like we just spoke about Charlton, and you know what I mean? And against Millwall away from home, you know what I mean? You're probably at home, sorry. You expect them to comfortably, after being 1-0 ahead, to go and get 3 points.
Yeah, I thought obviously the West Brom goal was superb free kick.
Yeah, goal.
I thought actually what made the difference for Millwall towards the end of the game was Jed Wallace. He put in 3 or 4 real good crosses.
Yeah, very good.
Like Premier League standard of crossing. Like, it was superb, and West Brom just couldn't cope with it.
Yeah, well, I looked at the 2 subs that Millwall brought on. They brought on Matt Smith, and they brought on Bavardson, the ex Reading centre forward. And you know what I mean. Last year we spoke about them struggling with goals, and Gregory, who just spoke about they're going to Stoke, but they've recruited better players, I think, and more championship-minded centre forwards who are going to be more dangerous than what they had. You know what I mean. Gregory might be a better player. But Bavardson knows this league inside out after his last couple of seasons at Reading. Matt Smith is a very, very, very good player, and he's getting his rewards with his goals. And you know, I mean, Millwall have had a very good start of the season, and better than what I thought.
Yeah, West Brom had a goal ruled out for offside early on, where Zohore was coming back off from an offside position in the build-up. I got to say, for West Brom fans, that won't be the first time you see that. He is not the quickest for coming back into an onside position, and it's cost him because it wasn't like he scored from an offside position. He was just coming back, and then he got involved in the play, laid it off. It's just, I don't want to say lazy, but it's just, if he's busting to get back on side, that's a goal.
It is lazy centre forward, and it's poor play because it's cost him. And you know what I mean. I looked at he's a bit lackadaisical, with his finishing as well, because he had a couple of bites in the first half at shots that he should have scored, and he just looked lethargic or not sharp. And you know what I mean. He's got himself a good move, and you know what I mean. And he's trying to impress the West Brom fans, and you know what I mean. He hasn't really started full of confidence, and if he's not careful with the players that West Brom have got behind him, especially by bringing in the lad they've just brought in from Southampton, he wants to be very careful or he'll lose his place.
Yeah, I think it was in the first half. Millwall were messing about with it in their own box, passing it around a bit when they perhaps shouldn't have. West Brom pressed, and they sort of tackled the defender, laid it across to Zohore, and just closer than the penalty spot. He only had to really hit the target either side of the keeper, and it's goal.
Yeah,
and he sort of just stroked it. He just did straight at the keeper.
He's not full of confidence, and you know what I mean. He needs that goal. You know what I mean. He's a confidence player. You know what I mean. I seen him for Cardiff like you did last year, and at times he needed a goal to revitalise his game or his season. And the longer that goes, you know what I mean, the less confidence he's going to have. And you know, I feel sorry for centre forwards, but you know what I mean. You've got to earn those chances as well, and by working hard and earning the right to play. And you know, I don't think by what I'm seeing, he's doing that at the minute.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think that I'm like bitter because he left Cardiff. I rate him as a championship player. I think I expected him to score 20, 25 goals this year. I think he struggled at the higher level, and that's why he didn't end up playing very much for Cardiff from the start last year. But where I was hoping he wasn't going to move, because I thought that coming down into the championship, he would, because, last time we were in the championship, he scored, I think, 15 or 18 goals. So, he can do it at this level. And like you say, when you haven't got the confidence or the form, the least you've got to do is work really hard for the team.
Yeah, we've got to compensate. You know what I mean? And for me, you know what I mean. Working hard and your work rate, it costs nothing. You know what I mean? And your goals will come. You know what I mean? If it might come off your backside or a deflection or whatever that may be. You know what I mean? You've got to earn the right to get that piece of luck, and you know what I mean. He's got to work hard, and you know what I mean. And I'm sure the new players, what he's got chasing him. You know what I mean? I'll probably make him work harder, or he'll lose his place.
Yeah. So next up, Sheffield Wednesday 2, Barnsley 0. Kadeem Harris again.
Massively impressed with Chef Wade and Lee Bullen. You know what I mean? We spoke about it, and I wonder how long this is going to continue. That the Steve Bruce effect. You know what I mean? He left him in a little bit of a hole. He did some really good business, bringing in Murphy from Newcastle on deadline day on loan, and gets his goal after 2 minutes, which is a very, very, very tidy finish. You know what I mean? He's got the lot. You know what I mean? He's come from a good pedigree. You know what I mean? Obviously, his brother plays for Cardiff City. He's a very, very good footballer. You know what I mean? Going forward, Sheffield Wednesday, they've got pace, they've got power, they've got trickery. You know, they've got Harris on one wing, Murphy on the other. You've got Adam Reach. You've got Big Fletcher centre forward. You know what I mean? On paper, they're a very good side, and you know what I mean. And they've started the season great. Scored 5 goals in 2 games, the top of the table. Scoring goals, won the Yorkshire Derby, and you know what I mean. I was extremely impressed with Fletcher's goal as well. You know what I mean. He turned on the edge of the box. He probably could have or should have passed it. You know what I mean. And I think it was Adam Reach who wasn't happy that he didn't pass, and then he rifles it in the bottom corner. And you know what I mean. Good luck to him, because I followed his career when he was at Wolves and Sunderland, and you know what I mean. He's a proper centre forward.
Yeah, he's top class finisher, Stephen Fletcher is.
Yeah.
And if you put him in the right positions, he will score goals.
Yeah, of course.
I thought Radlinger in goal for Barnsley had a really good game. I thought he was unlucky to be on the losing side.
Yeah.
He made a couple of really good saves. And the Wednesday keeper, is it Dawson?
Yeah.
I thought he made a couple of good saves as well.
Yeah,
and I thought Kadeem Harris looks
especially last week after we spoke about
confidence.
goalkeepers making mistakes. I thought, you know what I mean. I think a lot of goalkeepers, especially these two, the game should have been a lot more than 2-0 on either side. But both goalkeepers made some fantastic saves.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Kadeem Harris looks sharp again. He's made 2 good.
He looks like he's found his home. You know what I mean. I know it's only early start of the season, but you know what I mean. For him to play week in, week out. You know what I mean, with the squad of players that they've got, especially going forward, he's doing really well, and you know what I mean. His game he probably could have done with the goal or deserved a goal at the weekend, but you know what I mean. The goals that they scored and the chances what they create, they look really good going forward, and for Lee Bullen, you know what I mean. Will they make a decision and give him the job? You know what I mean. He can't do any more. You know what I mean. 6 points, beat Reading last week, 5 goals. You know what I mean. He's going in the right direction to get the job.
Yeah, I kind of think they should give him the job, because I think by not giving him the job, you were almost like dragging out this uncertainty, whereas the players seem to be playing for him.
Yeah.
And like, even if they say, right, you can have it till January and we'll reassess it, so there's not this like sort of thing hanging over the club. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Are they going to bring someone else in? And then, of course, you know, these, like, for instance, Kadeem Harris is playing well. If they bring in a new manager, he might not fancy him. So it's like those players confidence.
I just think the football clubs, you know what I mean, with managers doing well, you've got to give them an opportunity. If that's 6 months or a year or till Christmas, like you say, because what you're waiting for? Are you waiting for him to lose a football match and then not give him the job because you've lost 1 game? I just think it's criminal, because you know what I mean. They're not going to win every game this season, so you know what I mean. If that's next week or in 6 weeks' time, can't wait for someone to lose one football match and then not give him the job. You know what I mean? He's steadied the ship. He's obviously got the lads playing full of confidence. They've won two tough games, a derby game at the weekend, and obviously Reading away was never going to be easy, especially with the turmoil with Steve Bruce and things. So, you know what I mean? For me, I'd give him an opportunity, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You haven't lost anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, we got the mighty Cardiff City 2-1 to Luton.
Obviously, extremely pleased with the victory. You know what I mean? More so with the first goal, and my reasoning is because a lot of people have been doubting Aidan Flint and doubting him, and I say up north. He didn't have a great season, but not many of the defenders did last year, or many of the players. So people were saying that he wasn't very good. The good riddance, you know what I mean? That Middlesbrough lose at the weekend, and Aidan Flint goes and scores for Cardiff City, and they win the football match, and all of a sudden, people are now starting to question why they've let him go. And Neil Warnock's not stupid. We said this when he brought him in, that he knows his players, he knows the kind of football that he wants to play, the style of players that he wants to bring in, and the goal epitomised why he brought him in. You know what I mean? It was a tidy finish, a good cross into the box. You know what I mean? And that's what Cardiff City are all about. You know what I mean? The two goals that they did score, both crosses from the left-hand side, and two very good finishes. And one thing I will say though, Luton didn't give up. They carried on going, and they scored a Cardiff City-like goal as well themselves off a corner, which was poor defending. I will say that it was awful defending from Cardiff's point of view, but an excellent header from their point of view. And the celebrations, what they got from that goal was outstanding, and it was just it showed me how proud they were to be in the Championship, because the fans, the players, the bench, they just love scoring that goal to Cardiff City, and you know what I mean. Good luck to them, but. You know, overall, Cardiff City deserved to win the game, and I was so pleased for Vassell to get off the mark, and it was a very good, brave finish as well. I will say that.
It was good. It was a good finish. The Luton, I think, looked pretty good going forward. Callum McManaman is a really good player. I'm a big fan of his.
Very good, very good. I think
they do look shaky at the back.
Yeah, we said this. They'll certainly score goals, but you know what I mean. My concern for them in two games is. Middlesbrough scored 3 against them at their place. You know what I mean? Cardiff scored 2, should have scored more. They don't deal with crosses very well. They don't deal with the ball in the box very well. And if that's happened twice in 2 games, you know what I mean? Teams are going to start really understanding that and be throwing as many crosses as they can to really test them out. And you know what I mean? It's the goalkeeper is going to be very busy this season. The centre halves are going to be very busy this season, I believe. And you know what I mean? If they're letting goals in like they're letting in, they're going to have to score a lot of goals to counteract that. And
yeah.
My worry then would be, are they going to have enough firepower to stop the goals going in the other end? Because that's what that 5 goals in 2 games, and at the minute they are getting punished with some tidy finishing against 2 good sides, by the way. Though you know what I mean? They're starting the season against Middlesbrough and Cardiff. You know what I mean? You don't get many tougher starts than that. So. You know what I mean? We've got to put it in perspective as well, and you know what I mean. But as well, you know what I mean. They've come out with 1 point. You know what I mean. They could have had 2 if they'd have held on another couple of minutes at the Cardiff City Stadium, and you know what I mean. Then we would have been talking about an unbelievable start of the season for them. But you know what I mean. They've come up from the Championship. It's going to be a long season for them, but I do believe that they'll be okay to carry on with what they're doing so far.
Yeah, and I think scoring an equaliser in the 83rd or 84th minute is, you know, generally you'd have expected them to, teams, you know, if you equalise that late on, you think you've done it. Obviously, but still work to gun. And the other thing is that I would love to have seen a video of the thousands of Cardiff City fans who'd left when that equaliser went in. Yeah. And then, of course, 10 minutes later, they're still playing and Vassell scores.
Yeah.
There you go. I've never understood people who leave before the end of a football match, unless you've got to go somewhere specifically.
I don't always get it. You know what I mean? It's especially when the game's it's nowhere near finished. You know, it's still on the knife edge. You don't want to miss the winning goal. You know what I mean? I'd be so disappointed to have to go and watch the winning goal later on TV at home. Yeah, I'd be so mad with myself. I would.
And I can kind of understand it if you've got like a small kid with you, because you want to perhaps avoid the rush. Yeah. So I can understand leaving at like 88 minutes or something. But like sometimes you see people leaving at like, you know, 10 minutes to go. And I've never really understood that, I've got to be honest. But anyway, we'll come back to Vassell and Bobby Reid, because there's 2 questions related to Cardiff City in the Q&A segment.
Okay.
So we'll move on to Preston 3, Wigan 0. Now, before you go on this, I got to say, I was so annoyed watching this, because as good as Wigan were last week in defence against Cardiff, they were absolutely shocking against Preston. Like, shocking. It was like schoolboy defending. But last week, they were amazing.
Yeah, well, I think this is what you're going to find in the Championship, especially with sides like Wigan, that they're going to raise the game against the likes of Cardiff at home, in front of a big crowd. You know what I mean? You go to a local derby away to Preston, and the start they made, poor defending off a set piece, good finish by Maguire, but great ball in from Gallagher. And then just before half time, they let the second goal in. It could have been a hell of a lot more as well, you know what I mean? And last week we were talking about how good their reaction was, you know what I mean? How good going forward Wigan were. You know what I mean? They showed nothing this week. Disappointed in defence, all over the place in midfield. It didn't create a lot going forward. You know, just a real bad day at the office. And if, as a Wigan fan, it disturbed me a little bit, because you don't know which Wigan athlete's going to turn up, and if that's the Wigan of last week, who are competitive and raising the game against a good side, or if it's this week who just crumble from minute one really against in my opinion, a bang average Preston side who on the day just wanted it more than Wigan did.
Well, for me, I think what would worry me if I was a Wigan fan is, number one, Preston are one of my picks to go down. So, they're not like, they're not a Fulham or a Derby or a whoever, but the defence in the midfield was the gaps and the space everywhere and the lack of organisation.
Well,
and it was just Preston. Every time they won the ball back, they just it was like an influx of just white, just all these shirts going through.
Yeah.
And I was just,
it's basic defending side as well. You know what I mean? They're defending for the first goal off the corner. You know what I mean? The last thing. The last thing managers say in changing rooms, keep things at a tight, mark your men. Everyone knows the jobs on set pieces. You know what I mean? So you're 5-6 minutes into the game and you don't pick up basic defending. You know what I mean? And then you're fighting an uphill battle straight away, because you know what I mean. Preston were really up for it. You know what I mean? The fans were really up for it, and you've given them a chance. And you know what I mean? And we spoke about Preston last week. You know what I mean? A poor start of the season, average start. We expect them to really struggle. I still do expect them to struggle. And being around the bottom half of the table. But if teams are going to give them chances like Wigan did at the weekend, then they're going to win more football matches than they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your Prestons, your Wigans, your Charltons, they're going to be difficult to beat at home. They need to be difficult to beat at home. And I think they need to win their home games where possible to have any chance of staying up. Even though I include Charlton in that, even though they've made a good start. Yeah. So Preston, obviously, home 3-0, great stuff. Yeah. I was similar to you. I still think they're going to struggle, but you can only beat what's in front of you, as that famous saying is.
For me, the big given a gimme at the weekend by poor defending. A very good free kick later on, which I'm going to speak about later on. But as I say, you know what I mean. For me, Wigan. Far cry away from what they showed last week against Cardiff City.
Absolutely. So next up, we had Derby 0, Swansea City 0.
Obviously a tight affair. Game of missed chances. You know what I mean. Obviously, defenders on top. A penalty miss. Obviously, Waghorn missed a penalty just before half time, and it changes the game, because you go in. You know what I mean. Philip Cocu his team talk will have been massively different. At half time, 0-0 it would have been if you're going in 1-0. Swansea would have had to chase the game instead of it coming in at half time. You know what I mean? They keep the clean sheet. They go out second half a lot more comfortable. You know what I mean? The penalty misses just as important as goals at the minute, because they're happening all of the time. You know what I mean? Before it used to be a really good chance to take the lead. At the minute, I'm seeing a lot, especially in the Championship. You know what I mean? We talked about Britt Assombalonga's penalty miss last week, cost Middlesbrough 2 points. Martin Waghorn this week, you know what I mean? Very good player, cost his team 2. You know, I mean, these points which players and teams are giving up really. You know what I mean? Hopefully they don't come back and bite him on the backside come the end of the season, because it's a perfect opportunity to go and get 3 points for the penalty spot.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent save by the Swansea keeper.
Oh, it's a very good save, yeah, very good save.
But,
I thought,
like you say, you got to score on you.
there wasn't a lot happened in the game. You know what I mean? It wasn't a great game. Obviously, Swansea, they've lost their main attacking player. You know what I mean? So McBurney, when he's gone to Sheffield United. So going forward wise, they are going to struggle a little bit more than I expected them to this season, because they've lost a massive attacking threat, and I think that's showing in their game so far.
Yeah, I think the one worrying thing I thought for Derby was they lacked a bit of creativity. And it's only one game. Maybe they just had an off day. So just briefly on Rooney joining Derby, we're not going to talk about the financial side of it, because that's going to come up later. But in the preview show, we discussed Derby just seeming to be able to get to a certain point and never being able to get over the hill.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that you're probably going to agree with this, but I don't know. But like bringing Rooney in, that's the sort of player who can help him get over that hill, because he's done it at the very, very top of the game. He's played in huge games all over the world. So if they get to that point again, whether in the playoffs or in their, it's crunch time at the end of a season, having him in and around the squad is going to be something else for them, isn't it?
I think that the bit of business what they've done is just absolutely magnificent. We spoke about them always falling at the final hurdle. He'll bring a little bit of calmness. You know what I mean? He'll bring obviously that experience. He's going to bring goals. He's going to bring creativity. You know what I mean? They couldn't have brought in a better player for coaching as well as playing, because he's you know what I mean, the MLS isn't too taxing. You know what I mean? As long as he stays injury free and he comes to Derby match fit, I'm sure he's gonna help them kick on to another level. You know what I mean? Obviously, your only concern there is where are Derby in and around the January when he signs and when he comes and joins the club. If they're in and around the playoff stroke towards the top 2 or 3, you know what I mean, they're going to be a massive danger to everybody in the league, because you know what I mean, the Rooney factor. You know what I mean, as an founding Englishman myself, you know what I mean, success follows Wayne Rooney around, and you know what I mean, like Frank Lampard, like Steven Gerrard, like John Terry, you know what I mean, these lads are winners. Wayne Rooney's a winner, and you know what I mean, he won't want to follow the final hurdle. He'll want to go that one step further and enhance his football career, enhance his coaching career, enhance his ability of doing as well as they have, and I'm sure by the end of the season, it can only be a massive success story for me.
He could bag 10 goals by the end of the season, couldn't he? Easily.
Goals. They could be massive goals as well, and it could be the £60 million goal at Wembley. You know what I mean? Because just you know what I mean. He's Mr. Wembley himself. You know what I mean? So going to Wembley in the playoff final will be no pressure on his shoulders than what he's had all his career. So you know what I mean? He'll go into that. He'll go into the last 3-4 months of the season brimming full of confidence.
Yeah, and he'll give him a bit of fire and a bit of creativity as well. The one thing I would compare it to is when Cardiff failed to get to the Premier League for a few years. They came sort of fell at the last hurdles, and then Malky Mackay brought in Craig Bellamy from Man City on loan, and then obviously he signed. He changed the game. It took him a while to get accommodated to the Championship. He didn't hit the ground running in terms of what he brought to the team from a playing point of view, but what he brought to the team from his desire to win and his attitude in training and things, and his behaviour and his mentality around the pitch and around the game.
We just said that
changed squad.
Just use that word there, winner. He's a winner. You know what I mean? The Frank Lampards, the Steven Gerrards, the Wayne Rooney's, all these kind of footballers have just been bred on winning football matches. And you know what I mean? He'll bring that mentality, and you know what I mean. Hopefully that's not which will affect some of our football clubs and the teams that we support. But you know, we can only be good for the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we got Hull 2, Reading 1.
A fantastic start for Hull. You know what I mean? They scored 2 goals. We spoke about Bowen at the start of the season, before the season started. You know what I mean? And he got off to a good start after
Quality
five,
again
6 minutes.
today.
Very good finish. You know what I mean? And they were just absolutely peppering the Reading goal. And you know what I mean? The way they started in the first half, it could have been 3, 4, 5 maybe at half time. And to be fair, if it wasn't for some excellent goalkeeping in the first half, Reading would have been out of sight and out of mind. Second half was just such a different story though. Reading came out with confidence from somewhere, which shocked me. Lucas Jow came and scored a very good goal to bring to half the deficit, and then second half they're probably looking not to score some more goals as well. And you know what I mean. Probably overall, a point would have been a decent result and probably a fair result. But Reading can't afford to give teams like Hull City a 2-0 lead. You know what I mean? They've started the season really badly, 2 defeats on the bounce, and losing to Sheffield last week and losing to Hull this week. But you know what I mean? They also need to be careful, because their trapdoor can swallow teams up early doors as well as late doors. You know what I mean? Because they've started off the season really, really badly.
Yeah, I didn't fancy Hull at the start of the season, but I've been impressed with them in both games. Um, Jared Bowen, I thought, was quality on the weekend. He he seems to be one of those players who, when the ball's coming to him, he's already thinking about where he's going next, and he's
Yeah,
already got a picture of what's around him.
yeah,
I really, really have been impressed with the start he's made. Obviously, we mentioned him in the preview show as well.
yeah,
Reading keeper for the one goal was diabolical.
yeah.
Um,
Awful, awful.
like
Well,
talking like under tens,
just went through him,
terrible.
and then ended up hitting the post and going along the line. And you know what I mean? Goalkeepers, you shouldn't be getting beaten near post, and you know what I mean. You've got to be aware what's around you. It was such a, you know what I mean. It wasn't as many as last week goalkeeping mistakes, but they're still hitting the championship on a regular occurrence at the minute.
I thought it was a bad one, and the reason I thought it was a bad one is you should never get beaten at your near post. But if you get beaten at your near post by something which is a rocket and like is in the goal before you've even got a hand up, that's one thing. But this
Yeah,
like trickled along the past him and then went off the inside of the post.
yeah.
I thought it was terrible.
Poor.
And like I say, my boy's a keeper, and I wouldn't be impressed with him if he did that.
Yeah.
Uh, just lastly, I thought Reading looked terrible at the back, not good at
Well,
all.
they're going to be a concern. You know, 2 years ago I thought they were going to struggle last year, but they ended up getting themselves out of trouble. And you know what I mean? They need to get themselves sorted out, because you know what I mean. And an ex-Premier League side, you know what I mean. They've sold the best centre forward in the summer. We just spoke about Imber Vadson. And if they're not careful, they're going to get themselves dragged into an unnecessary mess.
Yeah, I thought the boy Zhao, like you say, scored a really good goal. Looked
Yeah,
quite sharp. So maybe there's a play there for them going forward, but
yeah,
they need to get it together at the back badly.
yeah. Agreed.
I think they've signed a keeper though. Oh, maybe that's not them. I'm getting confused. Never mind. Ignore me. Next up was the mighty Middlesbrough, who lost 1-0 to Brentford.
Yeah. Poor results. First half, I thought they were absolutely fantastic. They created chances. They scored 2 very good goals. And I spoke about VAR earlier on. If VAR was at the Middlesbrough game at the weekend, there would have been 2-0 up going into half time. But it wasn't. So you know what I mean. For me, it was 2 poor decisions. One was an offside. One was a handball. But going forward, Middlesbrough looked very good, creating chances. Unlucky not to score in the first half. I thought Brentford did really well, defended quite resolutely in the first half, and then second half they came into their own. They created chance after chance. They were passing the ball around neat and tidy, defending really well. And then Ollie Watkins scored a very good goal. And then, to be fair, I didn't see Middlesbrough even looking like they were going to get an equaliser, because Brentford fully deserved the 3 points. And you know what I mean. I didn't expect them to go to Middlesbrough and get results, but you know what I mean. For the championship, that anyone can go and beat anybody. They fully deserve the 3 points overall, a 90-minute display. You know what I mean? I know I've probably just contradicted myself there with the first half, but second half performance after Middlesbrough dominated the first one, to turn the things around for Brentford second half and play the football and carry on the football, defend really well, create chances himself, scored a very good goal, team goal. You know what I mean? It was it could have been a bit sticky for Watkins. You know what I mean? He still had to put it away after good work on the right hand side from Canos, who I thought was excellent in midfield, some driving runs, and yeah, for me, they deserved it with their second half performance alone.
Yeah, I thought the Brentford keeper kept him in it early on. There was a good few chances where he made a good saves. I think there's plenty of positives for Woodgate. It's not quite 100% clicking, but there's a lot to take from it. The one thing I want to ask, or the one player I wanted to ask you about is Paddy McNair. Obviously, a few years ago when he was playing for Van Gaal for Man United, he sort of appeared from nowhere, jumped ahead of some other players from the academy who were in line previously to sort of come into the first team. I think he played about 15, 20 games that season, and he looked a real player for someone so young. And then all of a sudden he had a nightmare against, I think it was Everton, and they hauled him off after like 30 minutes, 2 games in a row. And then since then, his confidence seemed to just go. And he went to Sunderland and he didn't do great. So I was wondering what you think of him and how you think he's doing now, if he's regained that confidence.
Well, I think the manager's got confidence in him because the manager started the season with him because he signed last year from Sunderland, decent price tag, £3 million, and just didn't get a look in. Tony Pulis, I don't know if he did. I don't think he fancied him as a centre midfielder. I think he's seen him more of maybe as a defender or a fullback, and obviously Woodgate's come in and has stuck him straight in the centre midfield, and he's playing full of confidence. He's doing really well. He's not just sitting and getting on the ball like the Manchester United days and moving the ball from right to left. He's getting on the ball. He's bombing forward. He's getting really involved and he's playing full of confidence. And he's impressed me so far in the first 2 games. From the 2 games that I've watched live, one on TV and one there, I thought it was excellent. And long way to continue because you know what I mean, for a lad who hasn't played a lot of football last year to come and start the season and under a new manager and play full of confidence. You know what I mean? He's an international footballer, so you know what I mean. He's playing for Northern Ireland at a good level. You know what I mean. So I fully expect him to continue his performance levels and hopefully that will be with Middlesbrough and Middlesbrough getting further up that table as quick as possible.
Yeah, and I think he's still young. You know, because he was playing for United when he was 17.
Yeah.
You know, he's still a young man, so he's got plenty to build on.
Yeah.
Next up was Fulham versus Blackburn, which was 2-0 to Fulham. Absolute stunner of a free kick from Carney to open it.
I liked him the year that he scored the winning goal in the playoff final. He was in the Championship Team of the Year. He didn't play a lot in the Premier League last year. Was injured a little bit in and out, but technically he runs the game in midfield. He's very good. His goal was a magnificent strike, and he fully deserved the accolades he got. You know what I mean? And I spoke about Mitrovic on the show before the start of the season. He got his first goal of the season. I believe he'll be 20 plus. You know what I mean? Easily. You know what I mean? The way that they play. You know what I mean? They kept hold of him, which was a massive shock for me. You know what I mean? I thought he would have been well away in the window just gone. They brought in some very good players attacking wise. I looked at their front three at the weekend. It was Knockout on one side, Cavallero on the other, and Mitrovic up front. And I just think, is there a better front three in the Championship? On paper, no chance. You know what I mean? They've 3 Premier League international footballers on the day. You know what I mean? Technically are very good. You know what I mean? Who can score goals, create chances, win football matches on their own. And I fully believe that they'll create a lot more chances.
Yeah, and the bonus for them as well is Bobby Reid looked like he was suddenly a player again. He looked at home, and that was the way I describe it. He looked at home.
Yeah, he did really well. I was really disappointed for him with his finish because when he was 1-on-1, he should have scored. You got to hit the target. You know what I mean? He won't be happy with it, but the way he took it on, his confidence, his pace, it was electric, and he was just missed the finish. And it would have been nice for him to get his debut goal. And because you know, I mean, he looks like he's. I know it's only early doors, but he could fit right into that team with the way that they play.
Yeah, and I think that's the player. Just from the highlights which I saw, that's the player that we've been waiting for at Cardiff to sort of come out, and you only perhaps saw it for a handful of games over the period of time he was there. One player who we mentioned in the preview show for Blackburn was Armstrong, and I thought he looked really dangerous again.
He did, yeah.
They're just going to struggle for goals, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I was just, you know what I mean? They've got, on paper, they've got some good players, and I'm just disappointed. They had a bad start of the season against Charlton. Obviously, this was always going to be a tough game against Fulham. You know, it was always going to be, you know what I mean? Their first away game going to Fulham, and obviously Fulham didn't start the season great, so they were under pressure to hit the ground running. But Blackburn, 2 defeats out of 2. You know what I mean? Bottom of the league, one goal, 4-4 against. It's Tony needs to get those points on the board, and I'm sure he'll get it right. He's got some good players there. He's got some experience, and I hope he turns it around sharp, because obviously Tony was one of my heroes when he was at Middlesbrough, and he's a top fella, and you know what I mean. I'm sure he will get them right.
Yeah, great player as well.
Yeah.
So final game was Birmingham 1, Bristol City 1. Birmingham really needed bodies.
How this game was only 1-0 at the time. Birmingham City, you know what I mean? They created chance after chance after chance. I was just unbelievable how they didn't score before they scored, and then obviously they break the deadlock. Probably should have gone and got 2 and 3, and then and you get hit by a sucker punch. You know what I mean? And it was a tidy finish by Jukovic. You know what I mean? I've seen quite a lot of him when he was at Middlesbrough, and he scores goals. The boy, he does. You know, he gets in good areas. He puts himself about, and he's a championship player. You know what I mean? And he'll score goals for Birmingham. But your problem is, one's not enough, and one wasn't enough. And a decent side like Bristol City keep going at you, keep going at you, and then all of a sudden, late on in the game, they kill you by getting a goal 5-7 minutes to go, and you know what I mean, and then you're hanging on, because on another day Bristol City probably could have won the game as well.
Yeah, I think it was a weird one. Bristol sold another player to Cardiff on deadline day. I forget his name now, but he was holding midfielder, wasn't it? Pack, that's it. They sold him for like 250 grand.
Yeah.
And I saw a few Bristol City fans were not happy about that. Probably partially because they're selling them to Cardiff, but also for the price, because he's been a first team player for them. And I know they've brought in some players. The boy Palmer looks. I like him for Bristol. Yeah, played lovely through ball for the equaliser. Lovely through.
Yeah, it was a great goal. Yeah, great.
Afobe looks rusty, to say the least.
But he started the season last week at Stoke, and then obviously didn't do great. You know what I mean? Then to get himself a move to Bristol City for a decent it's a good move for him. He's going to play week in, week out. But like you say there, you know what I mean? He has to hit the ground running. He's got to. He's a tidy centre forward on his day. He's a championship centre forward. He puts himself about. He gets opportunities. But you know, with Bristol City, will be expecting to score goals straight away, because they need the goals. You know what I mean? They haven't started the season great. At the same time, you know what I mean? Lee Johnson, you know what I mean? He started his managerial career last year pretty strongly, but it hasn't started great this season.
Yeah, I thought it's a good signing for Bristol. They got a really good squad. Birmingham, they needed bodies on deadline day and didn't get them. No. So I do worry for them, because they've got a lot of young players in their team. Yeah. And, you know, if those boys have a bit of lack of confidence, or they just get tired, you know, in the business end, you know what it's like in the Championship. It's Tuesday, Saturday, all season. And that's a lot for young players, you know, making like in their first season or second season. Birmingham needed some signings and didn't get him. Great header for the goal by the Polish lad, who I'm not going to try and butcher his name, but he was a really, really good header. Yeah. But yeah, I worry for Birmingham simply because of squad size.
I think you get used to it now. I think the Birmingham fans, you know what I mean, they're used to struggling. You know what I mean? And that's such a shame for football clubs and such a shame for fans because they're a big football club. You know what I mean? The Birmingham City. You know what I mean? You see the Wolves, the Villas, the West Broms. You know what I mean? All the teams in and around them in the Midlands are going to that other level, playing in Europe, playing in the Premier League, signing players for big money. You know what I mean? And they're Birmingham. They are Birmingham. They are the Midlands club, and you know what I mean. They're one of the weakest out the teams I've just mentioned.
Absolutely, and that's the roundup of the games. So yeah, some big performances. So next up, we've got our 2 for 2, whereas myself and Andy will pick 2 big performance moments or players, and 2 nightmares for the weekend. So last week we did the 2 ups first. So this week we'll go 2 down first. Who have you got for your first 2 down?
My first one, I've gone for Jack Butland for the first mistake at the weekend, for the first goal. You know what I mean? After the last week's mistake, you know what I mean? I was expecting him to come back this week with a solid display, and you know what I mean? I think he was a little bit unsighted, but for me, the ball was straight at him, and his England national goalkeeper should have saved it.
Yeah, I've also got a goalkeeper, but a different one. I've got Joao Virginia, who is the Reading goalkeeper. Really needs to do better for that first goal. It's just a basic goalkeeping error, and also the pace of the shot, I thought, made it even more horrific. I was right. It was they've signed a new keeper. I think his name is Ricardo, a Brazilian guy, which is obviously going to put him under even more pressure.
Yeah, bit of it.
Who have you got for your second one, mate?
My second one, I've gone for Paddy Bamford at Leeds for his chances which he missed. You know, like you look at the game as a whole, they were very good. They created chances, but you know what I mean. He's their number 9. We spoke about it earlier on in the show that he puts them away to win the game, and you know what I mean. For me, he's got the ability to put them away. And, you know what I mean. Another day he will, but this weekend, unfortunately, he didn't, and he makes my number 2.
Yeah, I've got him too. Unfortunately, sorry, Patrick. He missed 4 or 5 clear-cut chances, which nearly, it could have cost Leeds points. I know they drew, but it could have cost them the win as well. If it wasn't for the, a really big goal they scored. And like I mentioned earlier, if he's going to be Leeds' number 9, first choice striker, he's got to be putting, a good he's got to be scoring at least 2 out of those sort of 5 chances, really. He's got to do better. I know he's young, but
he's their number 9, and he should be. He's good enough. He's a technically very good player. You know what I mean. He's been brought up by Chelsea, and you know what I mean. I fully expect him at the weekend to add to his first goal from last weekend for sure.
Yeah, and for your 2 up, first one.
My 2 up, I've gone for Tom Carney's wonder left foot strike to break the deadlock against Blackburn Rovers. I thought it was a magnificent shot. We spoke about it just previously for our last game, and you know what I mean. He fully deserves it. You know, he was one of the best players in the Championship 2 years ago, and with shots like that, he'll be right up there again.
Yeah, my first one is Glick for Leeds. He looks right at home in the Leeds team, the way they play. He's sharp and quick on the ball, creative, speedy. Looks a real Rolls Royce of a player, and he's got fantastic vision. And that was shown with his through ball for the, I think it was the Leeds goal. It was only one. Yeah. And who you got second, mate?
My second one, I've gone for Gallagher from Preston North End. You know what I mean? Paul Gallagher. He set the first goal up for the header from the corner, and then his wonder free kick against Wigan. You know what I mean? It was absolutely fantastic, and you know what I mean. Early doors, we said they're going to struggle. You know what I mean? And they need players like Paul Gallagher to do what he's doing at the weekend. And you know what I mean? I do, like we both said, I do believe they will struggle. But if he's pulling in performances like that week in, week out, it'll help them stay above that danger zone.
Yeah, and he's very experienced as well, isn't he? So they're going to need that through the season. So mine was Jared Bowen for this week. I felt like everything which Hull do well goes through him.
Yeah.
He's relaxed. He's composed on the ball. He always looks like he's got time to pick a pass or a shot. Very, very talented player who I'm really looking forward to watching for the rest of the season.
Good.
Okay, and finally, to wrap us up, we got a couple of questions for the Q&As. So, guys, if you want to send questions for the Q&As, I put a tweet out. The last couple of weeks has been on the Monday before we do it, but I'm hoping to put it out on the weekend. So just tweet at acecast_nation, sorry, and just send us a question. It could be about football generally or championship, whatever you fancy, or facebook.com/acecastnation. Use the hashtag AceNationArmy and tag us, tag Andy, tag me, tag us both. And so the first question is from Steve, who asks, did Cardiff City make a mistake not just selling Bobby Reid, but selling him to a potential promotional rival?
I'll answer the first part of the question. Did they make a mistake selling him? I'd probably say no. If a footballer doesn't want to be at a football club, you can't force him to stay, and it's probably best for both parties if the player moves on. Unhappy players make unhappy football clubs and unhappy dressing rooms. So I think for Neil Warnock, it's best if he goes to the football club that he wants to join. Another football club. Is it right selling him to a rival? Well, only time will tell. You know what I mean? If Bobby Reid goes and scores a winning goal in the playoff final against Cardiff City, it's a disastrous decision. But you can't keep players side if they're not happy. And I believe Neil Warnock is experienced and wise enough to decide who he has in his squad and who he doesn't have. And for me, he doesn't want to be there. Then good riddance and go and play for somebody else, because the players that he brought in. I think a better fit and better suited the way he wants to go and play this season and push for promotion than having lads there who don't want to be there.
Yeah, apparently a big sort of problem for Bobby Reid was that he didn't feel that Neil Warnock's way of playing suited the way he plays, which I can kind of see, and I can understand him wanting to leave. If it was my decision, maybe I'm slightly biased Cardiff fan, I wouldn't have sold him to Fulham.
Yeah,
I would have sold him elsewhere because there was a few other clubs involved. But then one of those clubs was Bristol City, and I don't really think we should sell him to us. Do you know what I mean? In the Championship, there's the teams who are going to be able to afford him are going to be your rivals. So you either got to sell him for cheap and sell him to a lower sort of Championship club, or you've got to bite the bullet and take the money. And they got a good price.
I just think that there wouldn't have been a Premiership club coming into him because he's probably still he's unproven at that level. You know what I mean?
He didn't play. Did he?
He needs to understand the Championship. You know what I mean? Again, and he's always going to sell him to a Championship club. And like you say, you know what I mean? There's probably 3, 4, 5 teams who we probably could have gone to. And if it was a choice out of Bristol City and Fulham, I think he made the right choice to go there, because I think there's a little bit now a history going on now with Bristol City and about buying and selling, and you know what I mean. I think probably that's going to have to end soon. You know what I mean, because it's going to be never ending if you're not careful.
Oh yeah. So Jamie P asks, Isaac Vassell, is he going to score the goals to take Cardiff up? As it seems like they may get stuck playing Patterson there again with no obvious 20 goals a season striker in the squad.
I don't think Cardiff City have had a 20-plus goal scorer probably since Robert Earnshaw. So, you know what I mean? I think everyone seems to chip in with goals with Cardiff. You know what I mean? If that's Sol Bamba, if that's Morrison, if that's Joe Rawls, if that's Junior Hoylett, if that's Vassell, if it's the new German boy. I don't think we need to get caught up on this 20 goal a season. You know what I mean? Cardiff City are not notoriously going to win games 4, 5, and 6. You know, that's just the way that Neil Warnock plays. You know what I mean? The way he attacks games, the way his tactics are used during football matches means that the games are tighter affairs anyway. So I don't think we need to get caught up on this 25 goal centre forward, because you know if it happens, great. But you know what I mean? It didn't happen the year that we got promoted. You know what I mean? He brings Gary Medine in, doesn't score goals. He had Zaha up front, didn't score that many goals, but promotion still worked out because of the way that the games went and the way that the tactics were used. And you know, I'm not worried about it. You know what I mean? I think he will get his fair share of goals. I think he's obviously started very well and got a goal in his debut, and I hope he gets 10, 12, 15 goals. But you know what I mean? I think Cardiff City will be up there. 100% will be up there, and you know what I mean. That doesn't, and they'll still be up there if Vassell scores 10 or 15 or not, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think scoring with pretty much his first touch or one of his first touches will do him the world of good. Coming into a new club, he's a young man scoring. You know, Cardiff's quite, you know, a pretty big club as well. So scoring a goal in his first game is going to do him the world of good. Yeah. I'm not sure. I do feel a bit like him and the German lad are relatively similar in like build and stature. They're both quite big boys. But I mean, you know, Neil Warnock's, you know, he wants to play with a big lad up top if he can. And I don't think you're
going to see both of them playing in the same team. I think it's going to be one or the other. You know, I mean, like a Saturday, you might eventually see both of them on the same pitch towards the end of the game. If Cardiff are chasing the game, you know what I mean. But you look at the end at the end of the game. You know what I mean. Cardiff are drawing 1-1 against Luton Town. Junior Hoylett puts a cross in the box. You've got Vassell in the box. You've got Morrison in the box. You've got Aidan Flint in the box. You know what I mean. You've got Pack on the edge of the box. You've got Patterson in the box. You're inundated there with players who can score goals. You know what I mean. So I'm not concerned. It's the way Cardiff play. You know what I mean. The manager would rather put up Morrison and put up Aidan Flint and try and go and win the game that way than throw centre forward on the way. He's got a way of playing and it works and it's been effective. And you know what I mean. We're not here questioning Neil Warnock and his style of play. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Possession wise, you know what I mean. The game's not won in possession. The game's won with a final result at the end of a 90-minute game. And you know what I mean. He got his tactics eventually spot on by making his substitutions and the way that he attacked that game. And you know what I mean. I think Cardiff will certainly be up there with the way that they play, with or without a 20-goal striker.
Yeah, and I think they will play Patterson up front as well at times.
He's done it.
I think he suits the way they want to play because he presses so high up. I think
he's very good though. He's good in the air. He's aggressive. You know what I mean. He's technically very good on the floor as well. He's got the lot. And you know what I mean. He's obviously been brought up in Scottish football and came and towards the end of the championship season after his injury, finished his season really strongly. Had a good Premier League season, and I expect him to continue this year and fire Cardiff right back up to where they need to be. And that's him scoring the odd goal down the line, or you know what I mean. You see the goal at the weekend, and you know what I mean, and how much the goal meant to him. It was nowhere near the goal. You know what I mean. He cares like everyone else does, and you know what I mean. And I'm sure the manager picks the right team to win each game.
Absolutely. So the final question is from a big supporter of the podcast, Johnny Wishbone, from Twitter, and it's on the Rooney deal, but it's more to do with the 32 casino element of it. So he says, did Derby finance the Rooney deal by setting up a sponsorship deal with the casino, by announcing him as number 32, and then an hour later announcing the sponsorship deal? Also, even if this does get around the financial fair play rules, is it morally correct in terms of vulnerable people and children?
Financial fair play rules, I don't think I'll have an effect on that because I do believe it's going to be funded individually by 32 Red. If they've done it to get Wayne Rooney back into the country and get him playing English football, then so be it. That might be a deal done through Wayne Rooney's agent, or you know what I mean, or a third party investor. But I see it as a good thing because it gets Wayne Rooney back in English football, gets him in the Championship, which creates a buzz. It creates that wow factor, and it can only be a good thing, especially for us talking about it, because I'm so looking forward to it and so looking forward to seeing him play. The question about shirts and things, and obviously kids, I was speaking to my girlfriend earlier about it, about Middlesbrough, sponsored by a betting company. Their children's kits are now sponsored by Zoe's Place, which is a local charity, because obviously they're not allowed to have betting logos on the kits and things. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, Cardiff used to have T
doesn't.
Haven on there.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. That side of it doesn't have an effect. Yes, it's not. If kids are asking questions, awkward answers for parents and things, or teachers or things, but I don't think it'll have a massive effect. You know what I mean? I think it's a way of getting him into the country and a way of Derby financing a footballer, and you know what I mean. It's not ideal, and it does make you question about this financial fair play and things, because is that a way of twisting and making things happen? But so be it. Maybe other clubs are going to follow suit, and other things might happen, and it makes the championship even better and even more exciting for us to talk about.
Yeah, I think if he was on like the 400 grand a week that he was on at, like United and stuff, I think I'd have a bit more of a problem with it, because there's no way in hell the Championship club should be paying that. And obviously they're not paying his wage. That's why he's got the number 32 shirt, and it's because this sponsorship deal. I don't have a huge problem with it. It does seem a bit shady, but like you say, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. But if he scores the winner against Cardiff in the playoff final, I might change my tune. But then it is what it is, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it can only be exciting, and I hope supporters see it that way as well. Because for me, you know what I mean. If you want to be excited to watch a championship and you want more publicity about the championship, this can only help and make it better, make it brighter for us all to watch it. Because you know what I mean. I want it more on the TV. I want to see more highlights. I want to see better players playing in it, and the only way for that to happen is by raising the profile. And how better by raising the profile is having Wayne Rooney, England's highest ever goal scorer, coming in the championship in January.
Yeah, what a player is. One of, if not the best English player of all time.
Yeah.
Playing in the championship.
Can't fault it. And I hope everyone does see it that way, because it's a good thing. You're always going to question it, you know what I mean? If who he does score his first goal against, or he does get them promoted, people are going to ask more questions. But you know what I mean? He's coming here to do his coaching badges. He's coming here to enhance his coaching credentials with Philip Cocu, and hopefully one day, I presume, to be a manager. And you know what I mean? He's starting where Frank Lampard left last summer, and good luck to him. I hope he does really well.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining me, Andy. Guys, you can find Andy on Twitter at AndyCampbell32. You can find me on Twitter at acecast_nation, and on Facebook, facebook.com/acecastnation. Obviously, you can see the video versions of all our shows on youtube.com/acepodcastnation, or audio at all podcasting platforms. Today's show was brought to you by Away Day Apparels, who is a group of casually obsessed football fans looking to bring something different to the wardrobes of like-minded people. With football, music, and weekend carnage high on the agenda, they aim to bring you exclusive products after some initial launch releases. You can find them at awaydayapparel.co.uk. And I urge you to get on that, because it's run by a lovely guy, lovely group of guys, and they've just brought on a top designer to help them further their brand.
I'll second again, some lovely fellas there doing that. I've dealt with them a month or so ago, and tried to help them get a bit further. So good luck to them, doing a great job.
Yeah, and I've actually got the owner coming on. Well, I've already recorded it. I think it'll be out next week, maybe next Monday, maybe the Monday after. Not sure yet though. But that was a fun show, talking about some the good old days of Cardiff and Ninian Park and all different stuff. It's good stuff. Anything to add, mate, before we go?
No, all good, mate. All good. Looking forward to what we got this week. We've got I don't even know what the cup's called now. It was last year's Carabao Cup. Is it Carabao Cup again this year?
No, I think it's called something different again, isn't it?
Well, I'll call it the Coca-Cola Cup then. Coca-Cola Cup from years ago.
Yeah,
this week.
it was the best. That's when he was at his best, wasn't it? It's the Coca-Cola.
Yeah, Coca-Cola Cup. Littlewood
EFL Cup now it is, apparently.
Cup. Boring.
Yeah, Coca-Cola Cup. That's what that's what we're going to call it for the rest of the season. Right, nice one for joining me, mate. We'll be back next week, guys. Cheers.
Yeah.